of our politics and the nature of our governance. They also influenced our thinking about development and progress, including on how best we can stand on our own feet. And of course, they shaped our approach to engaging the neighborhood particularly and the world at large. At one level, each of these may look like a different subject or a different domain, but the truth is that they represented a holistic worldview, and in real life, each was inseparable from the other. Now, with that as a larger context, allow me to focus on some specific issues that are so deeply, so inextricably associated with Dr. Mukherjee. The first pertains to the accession of Jammu and Kashmir and the ensuing debate about that process and its implications. Now, his position, of course, is known to all of us, and also evoked, of Ek Desh Mein Do Vidhan, Do Pradhan, Do Nishan Nahi Chalenge. The issue itself does not require any further elucidation after so many years and so many experiences. We all know how damaging it has been economically, developmentally, socially, and in terms of national security when Jammu and Kashmir was not fully integrated into the national mainstream. When that was decisively rectified on 5 August 2019, obviously our national integration emerged that much stronger. But as a Minister of External Affairs, what I would like to underline today is how this issue was taken advantage of by external powers vis-à-vis India. Now, we must also appreciate that this assessment is not an outcome of hindsight. Even in 1953, Dr. Shyma Prasad Lecture conveyed to Prime Minister Nehru that, and I quote him, "No one today could claim that your handling of the Kashmir problem has enhanced our international prestige or has won for us wide international support and sympathy. On the other hand, your policy in this behalf has added to complications both at home and abroad." I repeat, your policy in this behalf has added to complications both at home and abroad. Statesmanship requires that you should re-examine the whole matter dispassionately and instead of being haunted by false internationalism, firmly create conditions for national solidarity based on fair adjustment of different views. I particularly stress this reference to complications abroad because that is precisely what came to preoccupy Indian diplomacy for the period thereafter. Interestingly, Sardar Patel too had a similar view when he very presciently cautioned Pandit Nehru about submitting our interest to the judgment of others. With the passage of time, the diplomatic consequences of the early misjudgments on Jammu and Kashmir have probably receded from public memory. It is possible that the younger generations are even unaware of the pressures that our country faced on this issue. But it is nevertheless worth recalling in order to fully appreciate the importance of what we did in August 2019. The question of how weaknesses are exploited in world politics and therefore why we should constantly strengthen our national security. Let me dwell on the global manipulation of the Jammu and Kashmir situation in some detail. This would explain what Dr. Mukherjee meant when he spoke of complications. Many of you would be familiar with the fact that in December 1947, India referred the matter to the United Nations under Article 35 of the UN Charter as a threat to international peace and security created by Pakistan's support to the invaders. There is a separate debate on whether this was the best pathway that India could have chosen at that time, but I won't get into that. Now bear in mind that the British appointed Governor General accepted the instrument of accession in regard to Jammu and Kashmir under the relevant legal provisions. What I would like to highlight more is the responses of the major world powers to an opening that this situation provided. Clearly, as the recent colonial power, the United Kingdom was in the lead. It was also the one with the strongest post-partition agenda and therefore the most mischievous. The UK influenced the passing of a Security Council resolution calling on both India and Pakistan to refrain from any acts that would aggravate the situation. So what you have in effect is that the aggressor and the victim are put on par. Declassified records indicate very clearly that there was a strategy in the Commonwealth Relations Office to bring in Pakistani troops into Jammu and Kashmir to balance out India. The next step was to move through Belgium, which was then the President of the Security Council, to establish a 3-nation commission on the matter. Now in that process, India's main request that Pakistan refrain from assisting the invaders was conveniently dropped. The further sleight of hand happened when the title of the resolution itself was changed from to the India-Pakistan question. Canada then took over from Belgium and carried the Western agenda further forward by pressing for a Pakistani military presence in the place of the invaders if they withdrew. Matters, in fact, reached a stage where India actually had to threaten to leave the Commonwealth to protest against such bias. Now, as the stakes rose higher, the United States and other Western allies also got drawn deeper into this game. Intense pressures were exerted over the next few years, including the threat to withhold assistance of various kinds to India. The turning point, of course, was a 1957 UK-US joint draft threat by the Soviet Union. The next decade, India's defeat in the 1962 conflict with China saw a renewal of such efforts. The infamous Averell Harriman Duncan Sandys mission actually sought to arbitrate on Jammu and Kashmir, and this was the most serious of those endeavors. If they failed, it was less due to intent and more because of global circumstances and India's own resistance. The illegal 1963 China-Pakistan agreement on Shaksgam Valley made it awkward for Western nations to make common cause right then with Pakistan. But by 1965, Western partiality for Pakistan's attempt to capture Jammu and Kashmir was apparent once again in the stance that they took on the conflict. Issue moved purely to the bilateral format as a result of the Shimla Agreement. Attempts to interfere in Jammu and Kashmir, nevertheless, carried on. This happened publicly during the Clinton administration, and even the reaction of Western powers to our 1998 nuclear test tried to link it to this issue. I repeat, this happened publicly during the Clinton administration, and even the reaction of Western powers to our 1998 nuclear tests tried to link it to this issue. While the Bush administration moderated this, there were nevertheless conversations behind closed doors. Barack Obama did bring up Kashmir during his presidential campaign, and there was a debate actually about Ambassador Holbrooke's remit that some of you may remember. But much more than these diplomatic endeavors, what has hurt our interests more are the actual violation of our sovereignty and territorial integrity. And that violation was by China. As I noted, this began in 1963 and kept increasing thereafter through connectivity initiatives. We later saw that develop into the so-called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Each of these efforts has been countered and will continue to be countered. But keeping all this in mind, we must appreciate mainstreaming Jammu and Kashmir. We have not just strengthened national integrity, but also enhanced national security.